Hey everyone, this is Andy with the mortalguitarist.com, and in this video I'm just going to touch on music theory, but stop, hang on, before you kind of go out and press the down button and go and find a video about kittens in boxes instead. All I'm going to talk about in this video is the dead simple question that crops up all the time: should I bother to learn any music theory? So the answer, I think, is probably, if you can possibly bring yourself to do it, there is benefit in learning a little bit of music theory. Two things it does for you. One is it gives you a language that means that you can ask questions and get answers that are, clear and unambiguous. A Facebook group that I was on a short while ago, somebody was asking about what's a diminished scale or what's a diminished chord, and there were pages and pages and pages of description trying to get the idea across, when all it really needed was to be able to say it's a 1 flat 3 flat 5, and if you want the fully diminished seventh, it's got a double flat seventh in it. For a little bit of the language of music, there you go, that's the answer. That's all you need to know. Now, it doesn't cover what can I do with it and what does it sound like, but if all you want to know is what it is and give you enough information that you can go out and work out how to play one, there you go. And that's where the benefit of a common language comes in. If you have a question to ask, you can ask it in a very accurate and concise way, and when you get answers back, you can understand them. The other thing that I think is probably more important than that, though, is that it gives a framework to hang your learning on. Now, once upon a time, if you were a beginner guitar player, you might go to a music shop, buy a guitar, and find out that that guitar shop had a guitar teacher. And you might book some lessons with a teacher, or hey, you might go and find a local newspaper, find a teacher in there, book yourself some lessons. And if you got lucky and you got a good teacher, and if you stuck with a teacher, you'd find that you'd start off and you'd do a lesson and learn something, you'd go home and practice, you'd do another lesson, you'd learn something else. And over a period of time, those lessons would string together and you'd end up with a basic knowledge of how music worked, as well as some skills that you'd practice and maybe some pieces of music that you could actually play in whatever genre you were following. Today, things are a little bit different for a lot of us, and what a lot of us beginners will do today is that they might get a guitar and it might come with an instruction book, and they might go on YouTube and find some videos showing them how to do some things, buy a couple of guitar magazines that have got some stuff laid out, maybe download a course, maybe take the odd lesson, talk to a friend, learn some stuff off of a CD or a download, and you get all these little tiny bits of information that kind of slot together but don't actually fit into a pattern for you. And if you have a bit of music theory, you can learn something and say, oh, I know what that is, and I know what that is, and I know what that is, and hey, look, these things relate and they join up, and you suddenly find that each little bit of information that you learn actually benefits you 3 or 4 times over, because it clarifies a whole bunch of other stuff. So, just to take a real world example, you might learn a guitar solo that's got a neat little double stop riff in it, and if all you know is that you can play that double stop riff in that guitar solo, great, you've got a nice solo to play. If you can figure out what the double stop riff is and how it relates to the chords that are lying under it and why it works, you can then play double stop riffs over just about anything in any key that you want to, just for that one little bit of learning. And I think that's where the real benefit comes in, that you put a little bit of time into learning, the top scratch layer of music theory, and it benefits everything that you do from there on in. And be clear, I'm talking about learning a little bit of theory. You can get a book and read hundreds of pages of heavy-duty music theory. Go and have a look on Wikipedia and you will find, hundreds or thousands of pages of analysis of how music hangs together. I don't think you need an awful lot of that stuff. I think what you don't need to sort of learn all the Italian terms, all of that stuff. But what you need to know is basically how scales and chords and arpeggios and triads and various different sort of things that you might want to pick out with certain techniques actually fit in together. So if you think about a guitar neck, it's learning the fretboard is such a common theme. Go look it up on YouTube, loads of videos out there about it. But when you think, it should be really dead simple, shouldn't it? Because it's a piece of wood that's, however long it is, it's got frets going across it, it's got strings going along it, you press a string down at a fret and you get a note. So how difficult can that be? So you start off when you first get hold of your first guitar, and you maybe learn a few chords, and then maybe you learn the good old first position of the pentatonic minor scale, and maybe you can kind of figure out that there's a relationship between where some of the chords fit and where those scales fit in. But then you learn 3-note per string scales, and they're really difficult to map onto the pentatonic scale positions that you've learned. And then you might want to learn your basic major and minor triad shapes. or you might want to learn some arpeggios, and it all seems like a completely different thing that you need to learn. And as you start sort of fitting these together, you add modes into the picture, and it just becomes this massive crisscross of unrelated, disrelated things that a little bit of music theory actually explains how they kind of fit on top of each other. The fact that they're simply different ways of looking at exactly the same thing. So if you've got that framework, that little bit of theory that goes along with it, you can add each little bit on, and it kind of clarifies instead of mystifying the whole process. Now, you can go too far, and I remember years and years ago, I was learning an Aerosmith song from one of the American guitar magazines. I'm tempted to say Guitar World, but could be wrong about that. And it had a Joe Perry solo. Now, I love Joe Perry to death. I love his playing, big influence on me. But the piece of music had notation, and it had tab written out in it. And it also had at the beginning a short essay about how the piece is structured, which was, I also always read those with a certain amount of interest. And it talked about the solo that Joe plays on this thing, and it had something in it like, and then in measure 37, Perry moves from the A minor pentatonic into a borrowed Phrygian modality. And thinking, what, really? Now, as I say, I absolutely love Joe Perry's playing, but I've got to say, I do find it kind of difficult to imagine that back in his 70s heyday, when he was coked out of his skull in the studio, that Joe Perry was wailing away and suddenly thought, I'm going to go Phrygian for a moment here. No, he didn't. He just stuck an A sharp in that solo, and that's what it was. And to me, that is just taking theory a step too far. Nobody is going to be standing on a stage or playing guitar in the real world thinking, I'm going to dip into Lydian for a moment here. You might do it when you're practicing, you might do it when you're thinking, I wonder if this would work, but it's kind of not what it's out there. That's the stuff that people fear is going to stifle them. Not talking about that is going way too far. I'm simply talking about learning the little tiny bit of music that lets you hang it all in together. So this video, should we learn a bit of music theory? I think the answer is yes. If you can possibly bring yourself to do it, then absolutely learn the very basics. It will make the whole journey a lot quicker and a lot easier. So the next time out, I'm going to take a look at something which is based on where does music theory come from. And the odd thing about it is that for all those hundreds of pages of stuff with arcane sort of nomenclature and names in it, music theory is actually based on a little tiny bit of physics, and then everything else is just made up and dumped on top of that. So next time out, I'm going to have a look at the made up stuff and how it relates to the physical world, because it gives you an idea of how important and how unimportant a lot of music theory is. And then after that, I'm going to do a short sequence of videos that will take very small sort of chewy bite-sized pieces of music theory and just break it down into the crucial bits that you need, that you can then go out, and if you have an urge to learn more, that you can find a site or get yourself a book that goes into it in some more depth. Or if you think that's enough, then hey, that's enough, go and get on and just enjoy playing guitar. So please do me a favour, hit the subscribe button. If you've got any questions, and if you'd like to highlight anything that you'd like me to cover, stick a comment down below the video, or go over to my music Facebook page, the link's down below, and stick a comment or a question or a query on there, and I'll do my best to get around to answering them. I'm going to sign off now. So I'm Andy Picker, this is the Mortal Guitarist. I hope everybody's sounding well out there. Enjoy playing, and I'll catch you in the next video out. Bye now.